Good morning, everybody. I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of what's happening in water management in the southeast, just to give you a bit of background. I work for the Department for Environment and Natural Resources, but we work as a regional body called Natural Resources Southeast, and we provide support to both the department, the Southeast NRM Board and the Southeastern Water Conservation and Drainage Board. So just a quick overview of the Southeast: 28,000 square kilometres, 65,000 people. Mount Gambier is the largest town outside of Adelaide at 27,000 people, which surprises lots of people. That's how big the second city in South Australia is. We deal with 8 local councils, and we've got a sort of Mediterranean climate that deals with a rainfall from about 850 mils to 450. So typical of most of South Australia in the agricultural areas. However, our summers are milder and our winters are a bit cooler, and sort of a normal sort of evaporation range for that part of the world. And so we're dealing with a very flat landscape, a series of old coastal dune systems which have interdunal areas which are flooded during winter. We've got a small volcanic region which raises itself above the landscape up to about 180 metres. One of the features we have is that we have very little formal surface water drainage in the forms of creeks. We have water that moves across those interdunal plains, but not formal creeks. And it's a landscape that's underlined by limestone with the caves and sinkholes and rising springs, and we've got a range of landscapes dominated by wetlands, sedgeland type communities, but also forest and woodland communities. So very much driven by primary production in our region, both through meat production, milk, wool, those sorts of things, but also we have a large forest industry. We've got around about 145,000 hectares of softwood and hardwood, and also that produces a whole heap of timber products. And we're seeing a lot of tourists through our region, and also it's one of those key elements to the state's strategic plan of trying to ensure we're getting premium food and wine from our clean environment. So this is the work I do is under the Natural Resources Management Act, and we're one of 8 regions from around the state. It's overseen by a board made of 9 community members, and they're advised by 2 NRM groups, which we have one for the upper southeast and one for the lower southeast. And the arrangement we have is that the NRM boards are supported by the Department of Environment, Water and Natural Resources. They provide the staff resources to support them. And in our region, we're mostly guided by what we do under the Natural Resources Management Act and also the Southeastern Water Conservation and Drainage Act. I don't know what's happened there. How do I get back? Right, so just quickly the governance. So the boards report directly to the minister, but they're informed through the state strategic plan and the state NRM plan. And the boards are responsible for producing a number of statutory documents. One of them is the regional business plan, which is a document that's used to be reviewed every 5 years, now every 10 years. And we also produce a number of water allocation plans, and we look after a whole heap of water affecting activities as well. Just to give you an idea, this is the levy-based side of the board. So boards have the capacity to generate levy from both people that own land and people that are allocated water. And this just gives you a bit of an idea of the quantum of what we're looking at. We've got about 3,000 water licensees in our region. We've got 38,000 properties, and they pay levies that the land-based levy is paid by everybody that owns land in the southeast at $42 a property, and our water is the cheapest in the state at $2.75 a megalitre. And this just gives you a bit of an idea of what the mix of our income is. The board also gets funds from the Australian government through things like the National Land Care Program, Biodiversity Fund, that sort of thing, and we also generate a bit of income from some fee-for-service work we do. So, getting down to water management in the southeast. One of the important elements of the southeast is it's almost totally driven by groundwater resources. So we rely heavily on those for almost every aspect of what goes on in the southeast, and we use a range of water management tools, some of which I've alluded to earlier in terms of legislation and plans and those sorts of things. And most of our work from a Natural Resources Southeast perspective is focused on things like water allocation planning, water affecting activity permits, and the operation and maintenance of the drainage system in the southeast. So the three resources we're dealing with, so we've got surface water, which is some of the stuff we're dealing with the drainage system. We've got an unconfined aquifer where most of the water is utilised from, and we've also got a deeper confined aquifer. We've got a number of things that we use to manage water at a strategic level. So the department's been working on a coordinated 5-year statewide work program for our water planning activities. The southeast is the largest volume of prescribed water in the southeast at about 1,200 gigalitres. And we're also doing some work at the higher level, revising the Regional Natural Resources Management Plan for the southeast, which we see as providing a framework for a hope of other management activities and on-ground works in the region regarding water in an integrated way with other natural resource management activities. So from a surface water management perspective, as I mentioned, we've got 5 very small catchments which are along the border, and they run from, most of the catchments are in Victoria and go across the border. We've got this major drainage network which is about 2,500 kilometres of drains, and then there's hundreds of regulators and bridges and a whole heap of infrastructure that goes with that. And roughly the southeast is divided into a drainage system that focuses on a couple of different outcomes. So we've got the upper southeast scheme that is primarily designed to manage salinity in the landscape to try and maintain agricultural productivity, and then we've got the southern area which is primarily focused on getting water off the land so that you can maintain productivity over winter and that sort of stuff when you get a lot of water accumulating in the landscape. One of the things that has been an outcome of that drainage system is that prior to European settlement, about 44% of the region was wetlands, and now that's more like 6%. And of that 6%, only about 10% of those wetlands still function in a natural way. They're all influenced by, almost all of them have been influenced by the impacts of drainage and vegetation clearance and other land use changes. We've got a number of key groundwater dependent ecosystems, and we've got a program where there's 13 of those that are specifically monitored because of their values. Some of those are Ramsar sites, so we've got 3 Ramsar sites in the southeast, and about 24% of all of the wetlands by area are part of nationally recognised wetlands of importance. Overall, even though there has been a lot of impact from drainage, we calculate there's around about 17,000 wetland features we're dealing with in this landscape. So we have a number of things associated with those. So there's some things like karst rising springs and seasonal herbaceous wetlands, which are highly threatened. Karst rising springs look like they'll probably be nominated for EPVC threatened ecological communities, and the seasonal herbaceous wetlands are currently an EPVC threatened ecological community. And then there's a whole heap of species that are associated with those wetland values. So the current programs that we've got in place, the 2 boards are working together to develop a drainage and wetland strategy for the southeast, and that focuses on operation of the drainage system, managing the wetlands and improving agricultural productivity. There's something else that's just popped up in the last 12 months is that we've got a community panel on drainage. This is a jury-style system where members of the community are looking at this question of we don't get enough money from the state government to fund the operation and maintenance of the drainage system, so they're looking at how would they raise that extra funding and who should pay for the cost of that in the drainage system. So that community panel program is going on at the moment and should be completed by the end of March with a recommendation to the Minister. So in the groundwater management side of things, we've got 5 prescribed areas. 4 of them are groundwater and 1 is surface water. And if you're not familiar with water allocation plans, they're really a thing that's set up to, it gives you the rules for managing, taking and using prescribed water resources, and that needs to look at both the environmental values and the uses that we make of water for agricultural and industrial and urban water supply and those sorts of things. And we also have to maintain the capacity of those resources to meet future demand. And part of that program is very community focused in that we have reference groups and advisory groups involved in that process to help use the knowledge that people have about those water resources and incorporate that so that they can influence the final outcomes of those plans. Some of the recent planning highlights. The Lower Limestone Coast Water Allocation Plan is the first place internationally where both recharge interception and direct groundwater extraction are licensed for commercial plantations. And it also completes a program of volumetric conversion of all our area-based licences that we've